out here. Y'all see all the fans. It's all for y'all. Love y'all.
The Detroit Lions are gearing up for their third and final preseason game of 2021 against the Indianapolis Colts with training camp here at the beautiful Allen Park training facility. It is a muggy one out here today, folks, as the players are just starting to report to practice. A lot of hairspray for me went into this. I'm Dannie Rogers, and I'll be hosting you for the next 90 minutes or so. Give or take, we've got so much to discuss here with training camp wrapping up. DetroitLions.com writer Tim Twentyman will be joining me here soon. Plus, former Lions offensive lineman TJ Lang will be on set. We're going to talk NFC North preseason football, who's been standing out, and we'll be talking a lot about this Lions secondary. Speaking of the secondary, cornerback Amani Oruwariye, we're gonna knock that one out of the park here soon. He is working on locking down that starting cornerback position here going into his third season. Plus, the undrafted rookie cornerback A.J. Parker spoke with the media. He's been having one heck of a season so far, and he is vying for a starting position as well, or at least a spot on this 53-man roster. We hear from him and his cornerbacks coach, Aubrey Pleasant. So much more. Here's my chat with Amani. Amani, has anyone been calling you a ninja around here lately?
One guy did, yeah. Aaron Glenn. He called me I'm the ninja, I guess. I don't know.
Do you know what it means?
Yeah, he told me I just kind of move around very quietly, doing my thing, and then attack whenever I want to. So that's a good nickname.
Does it sound about right?
Yeah, that's about right. I kind of just stay in my own lane, just more business approach to it. So yeah, he's about accurate with it.
Yeah, no, he told us that today. He calls you a ninja because you just go in there and you do your job. So you did your job last year, 16 games that you played in. How are you growing from taking that big leap, playing in 16 games, to now going into year 3?
Yeah, I think last year was tough on a lot of us, but I felt like being in those 16 games, I gained a lot of experience, gained a lot of knowledge for the game, kind of figured out what I need to make sure my body maintains throughout those 16 games. So leaping from last year to this year, I just want to improve in all those little things and then just help other guys around me that don't have that much experience as I was fortunate to have. So that's the goal. Your
position group is young. Yeah. So going into your third year, how are you able to be sort of a vet to the guys that are younger?
Just by, answering any questions they have. Whenever they come to me, they always come to me and just ask, anything that's on their mind. I'll help them out outside of the facility, watching film, just fine-tuning any kind of gray areas they have in any part of their game. Not that I'm perfect in my game, but I know I can give them some kind of advice that maybe coach might not be able to.
What have you seen progress in your game so far this season?
This season, I think just honestly more so just knowing more about like football. I thought I knew a lot about football until I met Coach Glenn and Coach Pleasant, and they just brought a totally different element to the game. Just taught me a lot of different things about how offenses work, especially Coach Pleasant he worked on the offensive side of the ball before. So ton of things that I've just took in and just been listening and just trying to put towards my game. So.
What was something that really raised your eyebrow that you're like, hey, I really didn't know this?
Yeah, let me think, one specific thing. So one thing, he more so teaches the safeties, but he's like, they call it 999. And it's basically, he calls it 99.9% of the time, quarterbacks can look from the right side or whatever side they start on and get all the way to the other side. So he's basically telling the safeties, by the time, if you count one second, before you get to 2, if he's still looking to the side, go. You know what I mean? Because we only a few can really do that. Obviously, we play one of them, Aaron Rodgers, another one retired, Drew Brees. So like, it's just something so small that could help a DB in the long run. So.
Knowing that Aaron Glenn played 15 years in the league and was able to sustain it, he says he talks to you guys all about the time
all the time about taking care of your body. So how much have you heard that really emphasized in the room?
A lot. I mean, he knows. He played the game at a high level, so he knows what it takes. So if he's saying it, we're listening. You know what I mean? So yeah, he's very hard on that. He's harped on it very much to the whole DB group. So everyone's kind of learning. Rookies are very new to it, so they're learning how, just kind of watching how we do it, how we take care of our bodies, getting in the routine. So everyone's growing.
Mm-hmm. Going up against veteran quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger, who you just went up against in Pitt, how much does that help you grow here in preseason and really start to lock down on what needs to happen in order to have success this season?
Tremendously. I mean, even just positive, negatives, all of it's a learning process, especially, like you said, against a future Hall of Famer and Ben Roethlisberger. If we can challenge ourselves in those kind of games, it'll just only make us better players and going forward. So I thought that was huge, getting that in the preseason.
Yeah, you have someone like Jeff Okuda who's figuring it out and is going into his second year, which is supposed to be a big leap. How have you tried to mentor him at all?
Yeah, I mean, I just get him to just remind him you're playing a child's game, the game you've been playing your whole life. So don't try to think too much into it. Don't let anyone else try to put too many expectations on you. Just be you at the end of the day, and I think that helps him a lot.
A.J. Parker is also another name that we keep hearing. You're in the room with them. What have you seen growth-wise from him that's making people talk about him so often?
I don't even want to say too much. He's our secret weapon. But he's grown a lot, man. He's just kind of similar to me, just been quiet out the way and just learning and just making plays. He's just, like I said, been asking a lot of questions and just playing lights out. I feel like he's got so much room for growth, obviously being a rookie, but he should be a special player for us.
I mean, Aaron Glenn had a lot of success in New Orleans with Coach Campbell. Last year, they were #1 in interceptions, 3rd in takeaways in the league. How do you channel that into this defense, this Detroit Lions defense that needs to be on the come up?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is we won't try to compare ourselves to the Saints defense because that could get tricky trying to do that. But I do think all the success he's had in it as an athlete, as a player and a coach, we're just trying to adhere to all that, take it all in, and just do what the coaches tell us. I feel like their resume speaks for itself between Coach Glenn and Coach Pleasant and all these coaches. They've been around winning football, so they know what it takes. As long as we could just listen to them, do what we're coached, and perform.
Grit, toughness, and versatility.
Simple as that.
He was on all 4 phases of special teams. I saw him at corner, saw him at nickel, saw him at safety. And you've heard Coach Campbell and Coach Glenn. Those are some of the intangibles we look for trying to build our defense here.
I'm pretty confident. I mean, it's just all based on the work you put in, off season, in season, after practice. So I feel like I've done the work. So I'm just confident in my abilities, and I'm just trying to go play my game.
Consistency, accountability, and trust. We trust him as a staff to be where he needs to be. And last game, he was able to make some tackles in the open field that I kind of challenged him on from the week prior. And young man's doing a great job.
I played all right. I left a couple plays out there that I could have made. So I need to just go back in, talk to Coach AP, talk to Coach AG, and just hone in and be better.
Competition makes the best of us all. Yeah, no question. Camp, everybody's jobs are up for grab. Just because you see them as a star, that's an illusion in my eyes. It's giving every guy an opportunity to continue to be their best selves. And in order to do that, sometimes as a coach, you might have to fabricate it or you might have to make it authentic. But no matter what, my job is based off a production base, and the young men need to know the same.
It's been good, man. It's just football, so got to go to work every day and do what I've been doing for basically my whole life. So it's just one of those things where I'm just grateful for this opportunity and trying to make the most of it.
Can we even afford this house?
I'm pretty sure we can.
Pretty sure. With Rocket Mortgage, you can be certain.
What's the difference?
I'm pretty sure they're just dolphins.
Certain is better.
Let's go with certain.
When you need to be certain about how much home you can afford, Rocket can.
Welcome back to Detroit Lions Training Camp Live. I'm now joined by DetroitLions.com writer Tim Twentyman. Tim, this is the last show. How sad are you for training camp?
A little sad, but I'm happy for the regular season, right? It's football for real now. It's not, guys out here in shorts sometimes, and the hitting starts, and we get to see kind of this vision that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have for this team, and it starts to count, and that's when football's fun for me. So it's good. I'm be a little sad not to be here with you anymore and doing these shows, but I'm ready for some real football.
I mean, yeah, I think the preseason is real because this is my first stint at it, but yeah, sure, let's get to the real football. Before that, let's check in on the social poll. This is an interesting question that I'm really curious to see kind of how it shakes out. Looks like it kind of already has. Which position group are you most intrigued to watch on Friday night against the Colts? So this is on Detroit Lions Twitter page, @Lions. You can go cast your vote. We will reveal the final results closer to the end of the show when former lineman TJ Lang comes up here. But Tim, anything? Linebackers.
Well, linebackers I'm looking forward to, but what about none of the above? Can I throw a wild card in there?
Yes.
Wide receiver?
That's a good one. Maybe we should have touched.
I think there's
base
some
with our
decisions
people.
to be made at wide receiver. I think we're going to touch on that in a little bit,
Yeah.
but that is one that I will have a close eye on come Saturday because roster cuts. Obviously, the roster goes from 80 to 53 next Tuesday, and I think that wide receiver position is very much up in the air. We'll get into that in a little bit.
We sure will. Okay, let's first talk a standout through the first 2 preseason games who's really caught fire with all the coaches, the media, and the fans who are watching. Cornerback A.J. Parker was an undrafted rookie coming into this training camp, and everyone loves him, including his coach, Aubrey Pleasant. Tim, why do they love A.J. Parker right now?
Trust. That's what Aubrey Pleasant said yesterday is the coaching staff trusts this guy to be in the right spot and to make a play. And you saw in Pittsburgh on Saturday, right? He led the team with 8 tackles. He also had a couple tackles for loss. He had a couple pass breakups. He was just in the right spots. And look, as a defensive back, you're at a disadvantage, especially playing cornerback. You're going to give up some plays. But what a great story for all the late-round draft picks or the undrafted guys like AJ that, you come in, you do your job, you put your head down, you listen to veterans, you come fly in and make a play like that in Pittsburgh, right? And you earn the trust of your coaching staff. And what a great story. And I think this guy is pretty close to a lock on the 53-man roster, and I think it's getting to a point. Look at this play right here, busting up that pass. That was a beautiful job he did Saturday on that play, and I think you could see him week 1 in versus San Francisco being the starting nickel cornerback, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in that competition as well. But he's been that good that we're talking about an undrafted rookie out of Kansas State who could be your starting nickel cornerback week 1 versus San Francisco.
Yeah, that's amazing, and he's just starting to come on. But that's all one of the few names that you're hearing about right now in that secondary in terms of who the new guys are. So they are very excited to see him. We assume he will go against the Colts. The great reps.
I would think so.
Yeah,
no reason to sit him. We'll have to see if they kind of have determined that he's their guy and their starter. Maybe he doesn't play, but I think they still want to see the competition play out for one more game at that spot. You've got some other guys there, some veterans like, Nickel Roby-Coleman and Corn Elder, and I think they're maybe trying to determine, who wins that spot. I think AJ's got the lead right now, but maybe, they play on Friday. Everybody gets one last opportunity to make a good impression, and that guy's made a good impression all camp.
Yeah, his coach Aubrey Pleasant says putting him with the first string could be an illusion. I don't think it is.
Well, I think you're seeing it right now too, Danny. I think that's an important element too, special teams, right? And he did a lot of that in college too. He played safety, he played nickel corner, he played outside corner, and he played on all 4 special teams. And I think he's going to be a part of these special teams here too. So, it's versatility too. Coaches love that. When you're talking about the 53-man roster, you got to have guys that can do multiple things. It's a numbers game in the NFL. And so a guy like AJ Parker, I think, who you can throw on special teams, who if you're in a bind, you can put him outside and then you can play a nickel like we've seen. That's a guy who's really, really valuable to your football team.
1 week until those final cuts to get down to the 53-man roster. I can imagine he's maybe a little antsy.
A little antsy, but we talked to him yesterday. He's like, look, I'm confident.
Yeah.
I'm a confident guy. I came in here. I knew my abilities. I knew I could play multiple things. I knew I brought some value to this team, and I think his play has reflected that confidence. He doesn't seem like an undrafted rookie when you see him on the field. Certainly didn't Saturday in Pittsburgh. I mean, that was a guy who came up and made some sticks and was where he needed to be, and like Aubrey said, they trust him, and that's a huge thing, especially when you're talking about an undrafted rookie.
Woo! I know Coach Pleasant is also looking for consistency in ball production, so that's what I'm going to be paying attention to this Friday against the Colts. All right, Tim, let's get into your preseason standouts, and one is tight end TJ Hawkinson, who we haven't seen a whole lot of lately due to a little injury, but he's going to be okay. Why is he one of your standouts?
Yeah, I'm going to extend it to really all of training camp, not just the preseason, because we haven't seen TJ in the preseason, but I think from camp, he dealt with a little bit of a shoulder injury there for a couple weeks, but I think this dates all the way back to the off-season training program, and you look at him there, that was one of his really good catches early in camp, the concentration to get the feet down, and look, I've been praising this guy for 2 years now. We talked about it last training camp, how impressive he was, and I thought he was going to have a great season. He ended up having it, and I think it's going to be even better this year. You look at the 67 catches, 723 yards, that little line underneath, first Pro Bowl. I think there's going to be a lot more of those to come in his future as well. And like I've said before, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he leads this team in catches and touchdowns. I think he's built a really good rapport with that guy, 16, throwing him the football. And he's been really, really good this training camp. He's been one of my absolute standouts.
He was asked yesterday if he is at all concerned that he probably won't get any preseason games under his belt. He said, well, I didn't have any last year, and it worked out
How'd that
okay
work
for
out?
me.
Yeah, that worked out all right.
Pro Bowler. So that's where we're at. We're TJ Hawkinson. We know he is very excited for week one. We'll talk about that later in the show. All right, another standout on the offensive end, wide receiver Tyrell Williams. What have you seen from him?
Yeah, there were a lot of question marks coming into camp about that wide receiver core. It was definitely a new room there with Kenny Golladay gone, Marvin Jones Jr. gone, Danny Amendola gone. They've really kind of revamped that room. But, I think Tyrell has really established himself as Goff's kind of number one go-to guy through training camp. I think he's been really reliable. He came into this team with kind of that reputation of a deep threat guy, right? That's what he did a lot in San Diego.
Jared Goff loves that.
Made some plays, yeah. And he's done that. But I think where he's really stood out to me is in the intermediate and short areas as well. And, that's where you make your bread in the NFL, I mean, you've got to be able to go over the middle, which he's done, and he's made some tough catches there. There's the long ball that you're seeing with him right there, and he can do that as well and stretch the field. He's a little bigger than I thought he was. I think he plays strong, and I think he's had a really solid camp, and I think he's kind of emerged as that number one guy at wide receiver, a guy that's quickly building some confidence with 16. There's those short outs, right? Those are those key third down, 3rd and 6, right? Be able to hit that hash and make that play on the out of bounds line. And so he's been really good doing all that. He's been impressive to me, and I think he's kind of that guy who I think will lead that wide receiver core in terms of catches when you're just looking at the receivers. I think Jared's got a lot of confidence in him.
More to come about that wide receiver position
battle. Look at you with the tease.
Yes, exactly. So let's stick with the offense. Running back Deandre Swift. We haven't seen a whole lot of him lately either. Same as TJ Hawkinson. Minor injury to start with. Today, during head coach Dan Campbell's presser, he said, well, Swift might be out a little bit longer than we thought and not ready for week one. So why is he one of your standouts right now in this training camp?
Yeah, he's dealt with a groin injury, and it's kind of lagged a little bit longer than we thought. Now, he's back at practice now. I think he's going to get a pretty good load today. And so, you see, I mean, he's gotten work for about the last week. And I think what Dan was maybe alluding to was just how much he can use Swift just in terms of where is his wind going to be at, how much load can you give him, how tired might he be with missing so much practice. But, we've got 3 weeks until the regular season, first game there. So I think he's still got some opportunity. And where he's really excelled to me is right there in that pass game. We saw yesterday Swift and the guys did a lot of one-on-ones. It was a little different of a practice. It was kind of a one-on-one competitive period at the end of practice between guys who didn't get a lot of playing time in Pittsburgh. And like he's been all camp and dating back to the offseason training program too. I mean, he was just a load in the passing game. There weren't linebackers that could cover him. And I think that's going to be a real mismatch for this Lions offense. We talked about TJ Hawkinson, and how big he's going to be to this offense. Tyrell Williams on the outside. Deandre Swift is going to be a huge part of this passing game too. I think that's the big three when we talk about the pass game. It's going to be Hawkinson, Swift, and Tyrell Williams. Those are your three big targets. Wouldn't be surprised if those are your three leading pass catchers at the end of this season.
All right, book it. I want to see it done. Okay, defensive side of the ball, your standouts. We have to start with Twinkle Toes, Aleem McNeil at that nose tackle position.
Yeah, and what a great story too. I think that's going to be a terrific find by Brad Holmes. I really do. He stepped in from day one. He's been the starter at nose tackle, and that's rare for a fourth-round draft pick, right? Third round draft pick. And so, but yeah, the Dancing Bear, like Twinkle Toes, he's got a lot of nicknames out there. He's a big guy, but he's got an amazingly quick feet for a guy his size. You see it in one-on-ones. He's given Frank Ragnow, who's one of the best centers in the game, he's given him some pretty good reps on one-on-ones, and I think he's going to give them something in the pass rush. And he's just had a really strong camp. I think for a guy to come in and as a rookie and take that nose tackle job and kind of run with it and be as dominant as he's been at times, playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage, I just think he's really, really been strong, and I think there are good things in his future. I think he's got a chance to be really good, especially in terms of his pass rush prowess from that nose tackle spot.
Mm-hmm. Sticking with that defensive end, Romeo Okwara, linebacker. Why is he standing out to you as well?
Well, I think he just picked up right where he left off last year, right? Led this team with 10 sacks, had 72 affected quarterback plays if you count hurries and hits and everything else. And you just look at the numbers right there, right? The sacks, the safety, forced fumbles, and I'd also throw in there, I think he blocked 2 punts or 2 kicks too, and so he gives you something on special teams as well, and he's just been a handful off the edge. I think yesterday in the one-on-ones, he had great reps against Penei Sewell, and then they flipped him over, and he had a couple good rushes against Taylor Decker as well, and so we see that on a consistent basis. He's disruptive, he's really good off the edge, and with Trey Flowers back healthy and younger brother Julian Okwara kind of stepping up now that he's healthy and showing something too, at the outside linebacker spot, I think, led by Romeo Okwara, I think the Lions have something going there and might be able to get after it on the edge, and that'll allow guys like Aleem McNeil, who we just talked about, Levi Onwuzurike, and Kevin Strong, and Michael Brockers, and some of those guys inside to be able to kind of clean up some of that stuff, because they can be really strong and have to focus on a guy like number 95 right there, who's been really, really good in camp.
Absolutely. Okay, let's stick with this linebacker talk. Going into position battles to watch for.
Yeah, the inside linebacker spot, I think, is the interesting one. I think you know what you got on the outside. You know who your kind of 3-4 guys are. But inside, it's Jamie Collins Sr. and it's Alex Anzalone, right? Those are your 2 guys who I think are going to start. Derek Barnes, you guys saw how productive he can be Saturday in Pittsburgh.
They
love Derek Barnes. And look, he dealt with a hamstring injury, but he's back now. He's practicing full, and he's making an impact, and I think he's going to have a big role there as well. I think where it gets interesting is, when you talk about a guy like Jelani Tavai, right? Did all the right things in the offseason, dropped the weight, but in the preseason hasn't been as productive as maybe this coaching staff would want. Has that opened the door for a guy like, Anthony Pittman to kind of step in and be a guy that they think about on the 53-man roster? So I think that's an interesting one. I think this is a big game Friday for Anthony Pittman, Jelani Tavai. Who's that kind of final inside linebacker? I think it'll be really, really interesting there. You see the preseason stats, they're very similar, but I think, I think there's a high ceiling with Anthony Pittman. Hasn't had an opportunity to play a lot. Jelani has. And so, where's the ceiling at with Pittman? Is that something that you want to look forward to, when you're talking about the 53-man roster? So that'll be an interesting one come Friday.
Pittman, of course, the hometown guy from Birmingham Groves, went to Wayne State. And I talked with head coach Dan Campbell before the last preseason game at Pitt, and Anthony Pittman was one of the guys that he was very, very excited to watch. And he usually doesn't tell us who he's excited to watch, because then they typically don't play well. So he told Pittman at practice he would tell him he did well, but then he jinxed him. So I know coach is very excited about him.
Yeah, and he's had a couple practices here where he's made a lot of plays in the passing game. And I think that's, maybe where he gives you something that maybe Jelani doesn't. I think Jelani is a bigger guy when he comes downhill against the run, right? I think that's where his strength is. Maybe not so much out on the edges, in space, again, in the pass game. And so I think that's where Anthony Pittman has shown in practice, at least, that he can make some plays. And I think maybe that's where he has the edge. So it'll be an interesting decision, come next Tuesday between those 2 guys.
All right. we talked about wide receivers a little bit here with Tyrell Williams. You're looking at that position battle for that 5th wide receiver position because you believe they may only take 5 wide receivers on this roster, correct?
They may only take 5, and a guy that I've kind of wrote about and I think was a lock this whole time, Brashad Perriman, I don't know if he's as much a lock as he's been in the past.
That's
that I've written.
interesting. Is this a hot take?
Nah, I think maybe a little bit, but I think if you've watched the preseason and you've been out here during practice, I just don't think he's flashed as much as maybe the Lions probably hoped he would.
Do they need to rely on that veteran, though, like a Tyrell
And that's a good
Williams?
point, right? And there's a veteran guy, but, I think Quintez Cephas, a similar body type, right? I think was a guy who made plays last year. I think he doesn't have the speed, obviously, Brashad Perriman does to get down the field, but there's a reliability factor there that I've seen maybe a little bit more with Quintez than I have with Brashad in practice. And then you got to throw a guy like Tom Kennedy into the mix too, right?
One of Coach's favorites.
Yeah,
He
one
loves
of Coach's
talking about
favorites.
Tom.
And he's a guy that's, look, all he does is make plays. And I thought it was very telling after the game in Pittsburgh that David Blau went to the podium, was like, look, that's a guy we trust. Like, when we need a big play, when we need a third down catch, like, I look to 85 and he'll make a play, and he's shown that both in practice and in the preseason. Smaller guy, and you've got Khalif Raymond and you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, smaller guys as well. So, you worry about having too many guys with kind of a similar skill set. Tom's also, I think, got to show something on special teams, not just a return guy, but like I said earlier, the NFL's a numbers game when you're talking about 53, and it's versatility and what you can do, and to have a guy that can just play slot receiver, I think that's tough for a coaching staff. So, can he show something on special teams this next week? I think they're going to throw him in there on teams, all 4 of them, cover, and can he give you something on teams? And if he can, then I think there's his value. And now I think he's very much in the conversation at wide receiver too. Very interesting today in Dan's press conference. He said, look, I think we got about 80% of the 53-man roster figured out. And he was very quick to say, wide receiver, that's still very much in the air. So the Tom Kennedys, Quintez Cephas's, Brashad Perrimans, I think all those guys are kind of battling right now for those 2 last wide receiver spots. And that's a position to definitely keep an eye on come Friday against Indianapolis. Who stands out, and who can kind of solidify maybe that spot and get themselves into the conversation come next Tuesday with being included in that 53-man roster.
Kennedy sure has been reliable, and with all the love he's gotten lately, it truly would surprise me if the staff did not find a spot for him on that 53-man roster. Okay, let's wrap up position battles with backup quarterback. Both of these 2 preseason games have been pretty telling. However, like we were talking off camera, you've had Tim Boyle go up against first-string defense. You've had David Blau come in the second half and be able to grind it out and score touchdowns. What have been your observations of that backup quarterback spot?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point by you, and that has to be noted that Tim Boyle was playing against Pittsburgh's starters, and he didn't have a lot of his starters. There was a lot of reserves. A few, but he wasn't playing with a full set there, and so that has to be noted. But I think just throughout the course of the offseason training program, out here in practice, I just think when camp started, Tim Boyle was your backup quarterback, and I think there was little question about that.
Agreed.
And I think it's a credit to David Blau that I think we're talking about this right now, and that it's a much closer competition than I think people thought it would be heading into camp. But, they gave Tim Boyle some guaranteed money, and there's that aspect of it as well. But I just think David Blau's moved the football, right? He plays with kind of a quiet confidence. Yes. He just makes the right plays, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's got starting experience, and I think that's important too.
Boyle has no regular game playing experience. He's great in the preseason, in the past, but no game.
TJ Lang's coming up here in a little bit, and he can tell you about what that experience is like, and those 5 games in 2019 for David Blau, I think were critical.
Huge.
I think they were a huge building block learning step for him, and I think he has learned a lot from that, and I think he's taken that and kind of ran with it in camp, and if you're asking me straight up who I think has been maybe the most consistent quarterback among the backups, it'd be David Blau for me.
Okay.
It'd be David Blau throughout training camp. That's just my observation. Now, it could be different with the coaches, but from the outside looking in, I think David has asserted himself as the backup quarterback, but I think it's really, really close, and we'll see hopefully it never comes down to that. Jared Goff plays every snap,
Correct,
and
yes.
a backup maybe takes a knee or two, but it'll be very interesting if something does happen to Jared and they have to call on a second quarterback, which one it'll be. I still see them keeping 3 quarterbacks going into the regular season, but who gets the call first? I think that'll be an interesting question, Danny.
And I really am interested to see who will take this first half against the Colts and see if Dan Campbell will switch it up and give David Blau those first team reps against the starters with the Colts. Okay, let's look at some NFC North preseason storylines before we get Tim out of here. Okay, a big one. Chicago Bears. It's a little dilemma over there. Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. I feel like you can call it drama. There's been some drama.
It's fan-driven drama.
I agree with
Matt
that.
Nagy's been pretty clear about, Andy Dalton's the guy, and we got to see him in the regular season. He's going to be there week 1, but you just look at some of the things that Justin Fields has done in the preseason. Look, he's clocked the 3rd fastest time of any player in the preseason.
That 11th overall pick, man.
He's gotten up over 20 miles per hour, and you see the speed. It jumps out. But there's the veteran, right? Andy Dalton, and a guy that can stand in the pocket, make throws like that, and lead you down.
To the house.
Yeah,
yes.
and you just look at the statistics, right? Fields, 23 of 39, about 59% of his pass completions, 222 yards and 1 touchdown. Dalton, who you're seeing right there, 13 to 21, about 61%, 164 yards, a touchdown and interception. But I think what really separates these two guys is right there, how he can get out of the pocket, speaking of Justin Fields, how he can make plays with his feet. Look, he's got 79 rushing yards. He's leading that Chicago team in the preseason in rushing yards, and that's the element that is really tough on defenses when you've got a guy who can extend plays, who can get out the pocket, who can do 3 things with his legs. You're seeing it right there, right? Look at the elusiveness.
Wow.
But what I loved about that, Danny, is he wasn't quick to get out of that pocket. You saw him stand there, look left, look right, and I think that's the thing that's impressed me when I've watched him in the preseason. Normally you get a guy who's athletic and he can run, but look at that. He's staying in. Now he decides to go, but
it's such a confidence.
It is a very
cool,
and then you see when he gets
confidence.
going, he's going, but he's not looking to run. He's running out of necessity. And so, I think there's a confidence with him, like you just said, and I think he's been impressive. The fans have certainly taken notice, and we'll see. What do we got? Chicago week 3, week 4?
Got week 4, October
week 4.
3rd, Chicago.
So it'll see week 4 if that's Andy Dalton against Detroit week 4 or if that's Justin Fields against Detroit week 4.
Far.
I think it'll be an interesting conversation early in the season.
Yep, so far Matt Nagy saying Dalton will get the week 1 start, at least the first half of week 1. So that'll be really interesting to see. Okay, week 5, October 10th. Lions will play Minnesota. Vikings coming off a 7-9 season last season. They had one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but of course, this year they are predicted to have the number 1 defense. Did I say offensive defense?
Did you steal my notes? Were you looking at my notes?
You're
I was going to go right to the defense.
Did I say something wrong?
No, you're good. I was going to go right to the defense.
I mean, we have to talk about it. They were the 28th, ranked 28th in the NFL last year in yards allowed. Now they're predicted to have the number 1 defense in the NFL. What the heck happened?
27th in points, right? They had 1 fewer sack than the Detroit Lions last year. We're talking about the Minnesota Vikings, right? We're talking about Mike Zimmer, who, when he took over Minnesota in 2014, that's the double A gap blitz, right? That's pressure. That's getting after the quarterback. That's causing turnovers like you're seeing right there. And we just didn't see that. Now, a lot of it was injuries. Danielle Hunter was hurt all year. They had Michael Pierce opted out. And so there were some issues that they were dealing with there. But it was very uncharacteristic of a Mike Zimmer defense. And like you mentioned, I think they've got everybody back. They're healthy. And I think that's going to make a huge difference. And look, for Minnesota to get where they want to go this year, that defense has to be way better than, like you said, 28th in points allowed, 27th in sacks. They ranked 28th in sacks, 27th in yards per game. That's not Minnesota. That's at least not the Minnesota I've been watching over the last 10 years. That's been one of the toughest teams to play, especially defensively. And so if they get back to being, what they are on defense, I think, that 7-9 will see a huge improvement in 2021.
I mean, but in week 5, if defense doesn't want to be on point, I mean, we won't be super sad about it. Okay, let's go to the Packers. Week 2 in Green Bay.
Monday night football.
We love Monday night football.
Get a little prime time in there, right?
That's amazing. Are Are they in jeopardy this season?
I don't think they're in jeopardy this season as much, but obviously all the talk surrounding Aaron Rodgers, right? And this potentially being the last year, and I wonder if there's going to be any pressure that builds with that. You've got Devontae Adams,
tour so we can wave bye to him.
one of the best wide receivers in the game. Aaron Jones, one of the most explosive running backs in the game. You're seeing A.J. Dillon right there, right? Jamal Williams is here, actually that's Hill, but Dillon is going to be their number 2 big, strong back out of Boston College, a big guy as well. And so they've got all the weapons, right? But how much will that Aaron Rodgers' future be looming over this team? And is this our last go? Is there any pressure that's going to be associated with that? Look, they made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. I think that was 31-26 against the Bucs. They were right there and almost got a Super Bowl. The pressure is huge to get to a Super Bowl in potentially Aaron Rodgers last year. Will the pressure be too much early, mid, late season? It'll be an interesting one to watch.
I'm operating as if this is the Aaron Rodgers farewell tour.
I don't think Detroit Lions fans will hate it.
I don't think they do at all.
I just don't think they'll hate it at all.
Enjoy week
Jordan
2.
Love. Bring on Jordan Love. I think that's what Detroit Lions fans are saying.
We do it in week 2. Dare ya, Green Bay. Okay, all right. Awesome analysis from DetroitLions.com writer Tim Twentyman. I had the chance to talk with defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. This is his first stint as a defensive coordinator and a former teammate, he was on the staff with New Orleans with head coach Dan Campbell. Campbell is giving him this opportunity in Detroit to rise the ranks and really lead this defense. Here is my conversation with AG.
Coach, 1994 first-round draft pick. We're throwing it all the way back. 15 years in the league. How were you able to sustain such longevity in the National Football League?
Well, I was a big believer in making sure I do everything I can to take care of my body, all right, so I can have longevity. Cold tubs, ice bath, then just eating the right things. I mean, those are things I took pride in, and I know for a fact they helped me, be able to play for 15 years.
How much are you emphasizing that to your players now?
Every day, because that's what it takes. Your body's your temple, right? And that's what makes you earn your money. So if you want to make a lot of money in this league, if you want to help a team win, all right, then you have to make sure you take care of your body. I think the guys, for the most part, are doing a good job with it.
Is there a percentage of, hey, here, do this off the field, getting your body right, and then a percentage of, here, do this on the field, and you're going to have great success in this
Well, that's
league?
a lifestyle
Okay.
of just taking care of your body in general. The things that you do off the field actually impacts what you do on the field, all right? So those guys just have to understand, man, the smallest little deal that you do off the field as far as taking care of your body, man, it's going to help you be able to make plays and help us win as a team, right, on the field. So I think they understand that, all right? But the thing is, you got to keep emphasizing that, because as the players get younger in this league, all right, they think they just go out and do whatever, all right? So you got to continue to emphasize and teach that.
In those 15 years as a player in this league, was there a year where you were like, this might be it, and you just kept going on and on?
You know what? I never thought about it like that. I love this game. I love playing. I love coaching it. And I just always thought, man, I'm continue to play as long as I can. And the one time where I thought about that was my first time I saw my daughter cry when I went to training camp. And I kind of thought that was going to be it, right? And that was actually year 15. So, and she was older at that time, so that was the first time. But man, I love playing it. I love coaching it, and this is who we are as a family. All right, so we're a football family, and we're all about ball.
I did see there was about a 4-year gap between playing and then going into a management personnel role.
Yeah.
Can you divulge what you were doing in those 4 years?
Oh man, this is trivia actually.
Okay.
Because I own 8 restaurants. Yeah.
What?
I own 8 restaurants.
Okay.
It's a family restaurant in Houston. The man that actually started it is really good friends with my dad. And the restaurant's called Frenchie's. It's you hear Beyonce talk about it. If you go to Houston, you have to go to Frenchie's. It's a mom and pop operation, but I'm telling you, it's one of the best chicken you've ever had in your life. I'm just telling you, so you got to try it. But I own 8 of them, and I'll tell you, my wife at that point, she just knows you're not happy, and I wasn't. And I was doing well in business and all that, but I mean, that's just not me. I'm not a sit behind a desk and, manage people as far as a restaurant's concerned, man. I'm a football guy. And my wife told me at that point, listen, go be happy and go coach. And when she said that, I mean, it was just, I knew it's what I wanted to do. So, but that's trivia.
So you still own those 8?
No, I sold
Oh,
them.
okay.
Once I got into ball,
Okay.
I totally got rid of them because I know I want to dive in. I didn't want to put my toe in the water and see if the water's cold, right? I want to dive right in. And once I made the decision, I mean, that's what I knew I wanted to do.
When you made the decision you were going to do coaching, you rose through the ranks very quickly to the defensive coordinator position in about 7 seasons of getting into coaching. I mean, does that surprise you how quickly you were able to rise the ranks?
You know what? I don't know if I want to say I'm surprised because I initially started as a scout, you know, with the Jets. And I would tell you that helped me become a better coach because I understand how to scout not just defensive backs and receivers, but offensive linemen, quarterbacks. So once I got into coaching, man, just my mentality as far as putting it all together, right, like really enhanced, right, with the scouting part. So I really studied on a day-to-day basis, study offense. So I don't want to say I'm surprised, but I was always eager to be in this position, just like I'm eager to be a head coach, you know, but I'm going to do everything I can to help this team be the best defensive team that it can be. And I'm looking forward to each season, looking forward to each game, I'm looking forward to each practice, you know, and I think that's what you have to do when you get in a position like this.
You came here to Detroit after spending the last few seasons with the head coach Dan Campbell in New Orleans. His personality kind of sent some shockwaves. How much did you know that was Dan Campbell before you got here?
You know, I would say this, and I think this is the best thing about Dan. He's authentic, and he is who he is. And you don't see that a lot with coaches. I mean, sometimes coaches want to be somebody else, right? But Dan wants to be Dan. And what you see is what you get. And that is outstanding to me. And it taught me a lot. I mean, just be me, and that's good enough, right? And players will accept you more if you're just yourself, you know? So I knew what he was going to bring to the table. I mean, we've been knowing each other for a while. We actually played together in Dallas, you know? So we've had a chance to compete against each other, offensively and defensively. So, I mean, it's outstanding. I mean, I love him to death. We bounce ideas off each other, and we just sit and we talk all the time because we've been knowing each other for a while.
What does it say about that relationship that you two have that he's giving you your first stint as a defensive coordinator in this league?
Outstanding. It really is. Now, here's what I do know. We're going to have our spats. You know, that's just how it is. But he's the head coach, and I'm going to do everything I can to make him the head coach of the year, right? That's my job. So as a friend, and also, I mean, that's what I expect of myself, to be able to do that. But, man, I want to see him succeed in every facet as a head coach.
Coming from a very successful defense in New Orleans with stats like #1 in interceptions in the league and 3rd in the league in takeaways, how do you bring that kind of mentality, that kind of success here to Detroit in this defense?
Well, you have to emphasize it on a daily basis because what you emphasize for the most part is what you get. And I would say this, man, players want to be coached. Players want to be good. And the more you can drill down on that, and the more, if you're hard on them, they expect that and they want that. You see a lot of players, and they say that they don't want to be coached up, but they do, right? Because they want to be successful, and I believe in that. I think I was coached by the guy that was the hardest coach in the NFL, and that was Bill Parcells. And it worked with all of us, and it worked with all the teams I've been on with him. So that's something that I've taken from his book as far as, man, listen, players want to be coached hard because they want to be the best. And it's our job as coaches to make sure we do that.
How are the defensive players on this roster reacting to getting coached up by you?
Well, I think the first thing that they do, they know I understand, right? Because I've been there. I think the second thing is they expect it because I think they all know my personality from the meeting room and from being on the field. So, man, I think those guys look forward to it on a daily basis because they don't know what they're going to get as far as language, as far as attitude. But, man, it's fun also, and they know it's fun. I try to keep it fun, but I also try to make sure that we're serious when we step on the grass.
2 preseason games down. Yeah. What have you seen so far from your defense?
Gradual improvement, right? From the first game, and I told the guys today, we were really good on 3rd down, right? Really good on 3rd down. Not as good in the red zone, all right? First game, we were really good against the passing game. Not as good against the running game. All right, so we get to Pittsburgh, right? We held them 2.9 yards per rush in the run game, right? Not as good in the passing game, right? 3rd down, not as good, but in the red zone, we were really good. right? So those things are starting to show up. The thing is, we got to piecemeal it, all right? And we got to be able to crawl before we can walk, all right? So the guys are understanding that, but man, we're not taking any more victories or anything like that, right? Every day is work. They understand that. So you saw that gradual improvement from one situation to the next situation. We just got to now start putting it together. So third down has to be good. Red zone has to be good. Run and pass game. So once we start to understand that and put it together, man, we're going to be rolling. And I know for a fact we will be.
Coach Campbell really loves talking about the younger players, rookies, the first or second year players on this team. Who has stuck out to you so far that can really impact your defense?
Well, the one guy I would say that stuck out this past game was A.J. Parker, rookie free agent. And I learned this a while ago from a really good GM, Jeff Ireland, who we have in New Orleans. Man, you can't be afraid of the young player. Right? You can't be afraid of them. Coach him up and put him out there and let him play. Right? And that's the one thing that he's done a really good job of. Iffy, who's our corner, I mean, he's doing some good things out there. Probably not being noticed like he should be, but he's doing some good things out there. Our 2D linemen, all right, Aleem and Levi. I mean, those guys showed up. Right, especially Levi in this past game. Aleem is who he is. We know he's going to be a good player. But man, we still have a long way to go. Right, and those guys are still young players, and we still got to coach them up. And the sky's the limit for all of them. So it's our job as coaches to make sure we do that.
Can we even afford this house?
I'm pretty sure we can.
Pretty sure. With Rocket Mortgage, you can be certain.
What's the difference?
I'm pretty sure they're just dolphins.
Certain is better.
Let's go with certain.
When you need to be certain about how much home you can afford, Rocket can.
Welcome back to Training Camp Live for the Detroit Lions. Danny Rogers now joined by the one and only Thomas T.J. Lang on this blistering hot day. And he decided to wear black and a couple of layers. What are you doing?
Poor choice. Milk was a bad choice. What can I say?
Jeez.
It's been a bad Tuesday so far. Yeah, it's hot out here today, though. I do not miss practicing on days like today.
No,
that's for sure.
And Dan Campbell, Tuesdays, he said, are the heavy loads. So these guys are working hard today. I'd say it's about 90 degrees.
At least.
Am I exaggerating?
Yeah. At least. Coaches love
it's
days.
112.
Coaches love days like this, though, because, you know, when you'll go down in like November or December when you have a, game down south. Oh, remember that day in training camp? It's like, dude, nobody. It's 2 months ago, right? Come on. But still, you get some good work in. You know what? The one thing about the heat, though, I will say is it really tests guys. You know, you start getting tired a little bit quicker and find out which guys are able to kind of overcome that and still have a productive practice and find a way to make some plays.
We will find out who the hydrated ones are, but we're Michigan kids, so it's just too hot out. I'm not going to lie. Okay, before TJ dives into the defense, his favorite side of the ball, we're going to check in on the trivia question for today. Which current Lions defensive back had the most interceptions in college? Any guess? I don't think you'll be able to guess it.
I mean, I would.
Power 5 school.
I feel like.
To give you a hint.
Yeah, I was going to say Jeff Okuda would be obvious, but he didn't really get thrown to a lot in college. So
they picked up on that quick.
Let's go with just any, mini, miny, mo. A.J. Parker.
Okay.
Just I have no idea.
I don't feel like ruining it this week, so you're going to have to wait to know what it is.
You're not going to give me the college again?
I'm not going to. Honestly, I don't think it'll help you because I don't think that'll help you.
That might be a hint.
I'm not. No hints. I don't want to ruin this week. All right, let's talk some defense. Former offensive line. You love.
My specialty.
Love defense.
Love DBs.
You love DBs. Okay, the cornerback breakdown. let's just start with the most obvious. You have Jeff Okuda, who you just mentioned, the former Buckeye, and then you have Amani Oruwariye,
Good
the
job.
former Penn State Nittany Lion. Thank you so much for that pronunciation. So those two guys will be playing opposite of each other and have essentially locked down that starting role, correct?
Right, I would say so. Yeah, I think just by the way that those guys have probably earned it this year in training camp more than anybody, and I know there's been a lot of excitement around Jeff kind of taking that, what seems to be next step. Hopefully, once we get into the regular season games, hopefully his successful training camp preseason will continue. But yeah, I think those two guys are definitely the top dogs as far as outside players. The real competition here to watch, so the next really couple days and Friday night is who's going to really step up above in that corner or in that slot position, and who are going to be the depth guys. Because as you know, Danny, I mean, you have to have probably 4 or 5, 6 DBs now that are ready to hit the field with just all the different packages that offenses play now with 3, 4, 5 receivers on the field and dime personnel, nickel personnel. You have to have 4 or 5 DBs on the field for a majority of the NFL football games now. So it's not so much about Jeff and Amani right now as it is who are going to be the guys that are going to be able to step up behind those guys and show that they can make some plays.
Okay, let's talk about that Nickelback competition now that you are alluding to it. First off, TJ, what is your best definition of what a Nickelback does that we're looking for here in the preseason?
Well, nickel is kind of a tough position because you have to cover pretty much the quickest receiver on the opposing teams in the slot, but you also have to be physical enough to be relied on as a run defender as well, because when you put the nickel in, you take a big linebacker out, and a lot of teams, depending on what matchups they have and if they have a tight end that can block or receivers that can block, they're going to run the ball if they see a nickel playing. So I thought the one thing that was really encouraging from last week's game against Pittsburgh was the way that A.J. Parker stood out. I mean, he had 2 or 3 TFLs in the backfield. He was fearless running in there and making tackles against Najee Harris and against Pittsburgh's first string offense. So that's something that really stands out as far as a nickelback, not only being able to cover guys, but show that you're just totally fearless when they're running the ball, and you can show that you can go make plays. He's a guy that in that competition so far, I mean, when you're talking just the Pittsburgh game, he stood out by far from the rest of the DBs as far as getting in on the run game.
Amazing, considering he was almost last on this depth chart just a few weeks ago. Now the undrafted rookie is really making a name for himself. In that Nickelback competition, you also have Nickel Roby-Coleman, who's been here for maybe about 10 days so far. He came from the Los Angeles Rams, is very, very accustomed to what defensive backs coach Aubrey Pleasant is going to run. And then plus you've got Mike Ford, who has 4 years of experience in that position as well. How do you see that shaking out as we move forward?
Well, when you talk about Roby-Coleman, he's been here for, like you said, maybe a week or 2 weeks, but he's got a lot of familiarity with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn being down in New Orleans as well, and so he knows the scheme, he knows the system. I thought, looking at Saturday's game against Pittsburgh, he did some nice things. He looked a little bit hesitant when it came in the run game, though. I mean, I saw a couple plays where he had a chance to kind of get back there and disrupt the play, maybe 1-2 yard gain, and he just looked a little bit timid for my liking. But you know what? He's a player with a lot of experience. Same with Mike Ford. Mike Ford can bring you some good plays on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's more known right now to be a special teams guy. I think hopefully, we'll get a chance to see him play a lot Friday against Indianapolis. Maybe he can separate himself as being maybe that third or fourth corner that can contribute. But when you talk about the corners, I mean, it's just hard to ignore how nice of a game A.J. Parker had against Pittsburgh. I mean, he was the one player that after the game, I know the first half was kind of a stinker on offense and defense, but he was really the one player that stood out, that really was out there making plays and wanted to make plays and was just throwing himself all over the field to try to make plays. And he did not miss many tackles. But, I mean, they're going to have to find Roby-Coleman, obviously, has played in this league for a few years now, so he's shown that he's capable of doing that. But it really just comes down to making plays. We haven't seen this defense get – I don't think any takeaways so far in the first 2 games. At least interceptions. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just making stuff up. But but when you talk about those backup guys, I think one of those guys is going to have to show that they can do that.
Absolutely. Okay, that'll be interesting really to see how that shakes out. And, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. We think A.J. Parker, the undrafted rookie, will make that 53-man roster, correct?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Unless something crazy happens Friday night against Indianapolis, I think that just based off of what we saw against Pittsburgh, I mean, it's really hard to not see this guy on this football team.
Sure thing. And he's playing for this guy, defensive backs coach Aubrey Pleasant. Just electric, constantly coaching up players. I feel like he could go out there and play right now.
You got to love that passion, though, don't you? Look at him. I mean, he's right in on the drill. Look at his face. Just angry.
He wasn't saying too much in his presser yesterday. We were able to speak with him. But he did give us just enough on A.J. Parker, some things he would like to see cornerback Jeff Okuda clean up. I mean, I think the most interesting thing about Coach Pleasant is that he was a special needs teacher in the Flint Community School District. He's from here. He came back home to be with these Detroit Lions and to be on Dan Campbell's staff. And he's probably one of the most talked about coaches so far through this training camp.
Yeah, well, you love coaches like that show passion. I mean, that really players, especially in training camp, it's hard every single day to bring maximum energy to the practice field when it just becomes so redundant after 3-4 weeks.
Hot.
It's steamy. Those guys are going to need some water after this one. But it's nice to have coaches like that. Okay, maybe you're coming out to practice today. Everybody knows it's hot. Maybe some guys are kind of slugging around a little bit. You get a coach like Aubrey Pleasant that kind of picks up that energy, gets the excitement going. Just so you get the work done. I think everybody loves seeing coaches like that have played the game, know what they're talking about, know what they're doing, and they have the passion and energy to bring along with it.
Sure thing. One of the 8 coaches on the staff who have experience playing in the National Football League. Okay, the safety breakdown. Tracy Walker and Will Harris seemingly to be the shoo-ins, both with at least 3 years of experience. How do you see that safety room shaking out here, TJ?
Well, I'd say as of right now, those 2 guys. I mean, Tracy, you definitely know is going to be the guy. Will Harris had a couple really nice plays last week as well. I think if Will can just become a little bit more of a sure tackler, then he would certainly entrench himself at one of those starting safety spots. But he made a great play, don't forget, on the first drive last week against Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger kind of showed off his new 240-pound body kind of scrambling around a little bit. Usually when the quarterback gets that much time, it's not good for a defense. But Will Harris had excellent coverage on Eric Ebron, was able to get his hand in there without drawing a penalty and force a punt. I think that was a play that really stood out against really good competition in Pittsburgh starters. So those 2 – listen, there's a lot of positions on this team that you kind of say the same thing about right now is we know who the starters are going to be. We don't know who the depth's going to be, right? And when you look at the safety position, it's very similar to the cornerback position. You have your top two guys, maybe top 3 guys. I know C.J. Moore is a guy that they were really excited about last year. Hasn't really shown that he's been a secure tackler so far. I know he kind of struggled against Pittsburgh, but he's got a lot of –
Dean Marlowe in the mix too.
Dean Marlowe. I mean, you've got a lot of guys that are really competing. And defensive backs, you need to have – it's like the offensive lineman. I mean, you need to have 6, 7, or 8 guys that can play. You just can't have one guy that you can't put in the game. So especially with how much these guys contribute on special teams, I mean, that's a huge factor as well when you talk about depth players in the secondary. But they need to find that guy. I feel like a broken record when you talk about DBs, but they need to find that guy who's going to be the 3rd and 4th guy that they can rely upon if they need to go play some big snaps in an NFL football game.
Absolutely. Let's hit on Tracy Walker here. The 4 years of experience as safety coming from Louisiana Lafayette. Just how can he continue to solidify his spot here?
I think he just needs to continue to develop as a two-way player, not only defending the pass, but also stepping up and continuing to make some tackles in the run game. We know that from what we've seen out of this defense in the past, I mean, they've been pretty much dead last in defense the last 2 years out of almost every single category. But Tracy's kind of one of those guys that has shown that he can bring down ball carries. He can be active in the run game, which is kind of what you need from that safety position. A lot of times now you see, safeties kind of coming into the box. You're playing at 6-7 yards instead of playing at 20 yards. You got to be able to make a tackle, because when offenses see that, they're thinking, okay, we're running right at this guy. Let's test him. If he can continue to develop at being a sure tackler, that'll go a long way for his, I'm sure, confidence and just morale as a player. But I really like to see him in the coverage game as well. I mean, we haven't seen him a whole lot put in one-on-one positions, but if he's a guy that you look around the league now and you see all these big tight ends, he's a guy that I'd love to see maybe match up one-on-one with the tight end. I know we saw it a little bit. Pittsburgh, I don't know what the exact coverage was, if it was his responsibility. I know one of the touchdowns to Freiermuth, Tracy was kind of in the area, but he's a guy that I'd like to see just kind of develop more as a sure physical pass defender, where you can lock him up on a tight end and, okay, that's one guy that we hope to just eliminate from opponents' offenses.
Talking with defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn this week, he said preseason game 1 we were able to shut down the run. Preseason game 2 we were able to shut down, not shut down the passing game. Yeah. So how important will it to finally see those two things come together, shutting down both the run and pass game here in the 3rd preseason game?
Yeah, well, that's the ultimate challenge. I think you don't see that a whole lot. I mean, we saw it out of Pittsburgh's defense when they shut down the Lions in the first half, run game and pass game. But that's the challenge, and that's why on defense you need so many two-way players, as far as guys that can cover but guys that can tackle. And I think that there were some instances in that game to say, okay, we did a really nice job in the run game. The issue against Pittsburgh was broken tackles. I mean, Pittsburgh was kind of just dinking and dunking, checking down to the running back, throwing 3-yard over routes, and they just slipped a couple that went for 40 yards. That was really the difference. So they just need to tackle better. And that's the one thing where if you can just keep the running backs to 2, 3, 4 yards, teams are going to give up on that pretty quick. And then you got them kind of right in the palm of your hand, right where you want them, to force them one-dimensional. That's what every defense tries to do. That's what every offense tries to avoid. But it really comes down to just tackling. The Saturday, I know, was a pretty sloppy game, especially in the first half when it came to just wrapping guys up and getting them on the ground. But when you talk about the DBs, I mean, A.J. Parker was a guy that I just keep going back to, that if I'm playing with a guy like that, I think that kind of play style, can become contagious to the rest of the defensive backfield, and hopefully we'll see signs of growth Friday against Indianapolis.
Certainly, and let's go back to Jeff Okuda, the cornerback, who, I mean, I've seen a lot of maturation both on the field and off the field in terms of his press conferences, and Okuda, he needs to take a step up. He was a 3rd overall pick last season, and he didn't live up to the hype. He didn't live up to the expectations of the franchise. And we know Okuda set such high expectations for himself. What have you seen from Okuda? And that you've been here almost every single day here in training camp.
Yeah, well, I think by all accounts, even watching him, talking to the coaches, hearing the way that his teammates talk about him, he does sound like a guy that's poised. I don't want to say to have a breakout year, but to definitely show that year 2 jump, to say, okay, he's got the potential to be a stud cornerback in this league. And I know that one thing that was kind of harped on against Pittsburgh was him giving up that big 40-yard touchdown.
Well, I was talking about him very nicely on TV.
But that kind of goes back to, Pittsburgh's first 5 or 6 passes were all underneath, just dink, 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 dink. And you could kind of see it setting up for a big play downfield. And that's exactly what happened. Jeff Okuda kind of bit on an under route that was coming in. It was a 3rd and 3, I think. So you're thinking in your situation, okay, the offense is just trying to get 4 or 5 yards. All it takes is one misstep in this league and guys just run right by you. But the one thing that was awesome, and I know even Coach hit on it too, that was really encouraging, was to watch the way he responded after giving up that big play. Right. On the same drive later in the series, they ran a little jet sweep on the 10-yard line, which looked like it was going to be a big play. Jeff Okuda just absolutely steamrolls his way in there, breaks up that play for a TFL. Later in the game, had a nice pass breakup on Juju Smith-Schuster, who's no slouch in the end zone. That was really – he had a chance to bring that down. If Jeff Okuda wasn't right in his face playing great defense, that probably would have been another touchdown. So not only I'm not as worried about him giving up that big play. It's going to happen, especially to young guys. You get your eyes in the wrong spot one time, or maybe you take you're just wrong on your guess. You can let up big plays, but the way that he responded, I think, tells you a lot about the growth that he's had so far in year 2 in this training camp and through the preseason.
Right. And how much growth have you seen from Amani Oruwariye? They're going into his 3rd season. He considers himself a vet, which is kind of crazy to think, only in his 3rd year, but he's got guys like Jeff Okuda that he has to mentor. So looking at those 2020 season stats, where can you see the most improvement for him going forward?
I think taking the ball away. I think last year you see, obviously, with the 1 interception, the 7 passes defended. That's big. He's always around the football. You never see Amani really get torched, right? You always kind of see him. He's at least around his guy. The one step he has to take is just learning how to maybe read the receiver a little bit when that ball's in the air and it's coming. Just turn your head around and make a play on the ball. Maybe you'll start getting a whole lot more takeaways. That's been the one thing that's been hindering this defense for a long time now, is not being able to take the ball away. Ball production, right? Get it back to your offense, right? And that's something that not only with Amani, but really the rest of the DBs is get the ball, right? Go take the ball away. And they even had
someone interceptions. Please, let's bring it up this season.
Especially you're on offense, you go, get a touchdown drive and you get a chance. I mean, that shifts the whole game. But Amani's just that guy that he always seems to be in the right place. He doesn't seem to be a guy that looks lost out there ever. He knows what he's doing. The biggest step that he can take is getting his hand on the ball and finding a way to be productive, taking the ball away. That'll be the one thing for him that I think he learns how to do that. I mean, he can be a stud.
Sure thing. All right. I am excited to see the jumps of improvement this defense can really make here going into the 3rd preseason game against the Colts this Friday at Ford Field, 7 p.m., and then heading into that Week 1 game against San Francisco, also at home. Okay, let's get into the social poll results. You can find them on Detroit Lions Twitter page. Question, which position group are you most intrigued to watch on Friday night against the Colts? The people said linebackers. TJ, what do you say?
That's not shocking. Listen, I know coaches don't use it as an excuse. Pretty much the whole front 7 last week against Pittsburgh was resting outside of Aleem McNeil, who's a rookie. Anzalone didn't play. Jamie Collins didn't play. But I think there was a bit of concern on how some of those backups played. And it wasn't so much just being in the wrong spot as it was just the inability to just make a play and finish plays, right? We saw a lot of missed tackles from that group with Tavai, who's been a guy that has worked his butt off, to come in shape this year and try to get better. Jalen Reeves-Maben. The one guy that I'm excited to watch continue to grow is Derek Barnes. I mean, if anything out of that Pittsburgh game showed us, another sack, was in the backfield a lot.
He
almost had an interception down on the goal line. That would have been huge.
He should have caught it. Don't worry, he knows.
Oh, yeah, he knows. That's the play you watch, and you just kind of turn your head as the coach plays the film. But Derek's a guy that I've loved so far through 2 games. I mean, he's all over the field. You can see the spark that he brings that defense, the energy that he has. But that, I mean, kind of like every other position we just talked about, DBs, you know who the top 2 guys are going to be, who are the 3rd and 4th guys going to be. And I think Derek Barnes is a guy that you just can't ignore the production that he's had so far this preseason.
You sure can't. He was a drafted guy for the Lions this past draft. Running backs were 2nd in that poll. People are excited to see running backs. You won't see Deandre Swift go out there. He's still working on getting back into shape, getting his wind back, so he's able to go for Week 1 against San Francisco. That's to be decided. But you do have Jamal Williams out there. The running back battle. What are you seeing from that so far?
Well, one guy I like, he gives obviously the stats right there, is Craig Reynolds. I mean, coming in the day before the first game against Buffalo and has 40-some yards and a touchdown. Last week follows it up with almost 6 yards of carry and another touchdown. He's certainly brought a spark. I know Godwin, you help me out with that one, but
Igwebuike.
Igwebuike, thank you. If transformed from safety to running back, kind of a guy that was just a lost toy for a long time. He comes in. The coaches were excited to watch him. He has a nice couple runs against Pittsburgh as well. Jamar Jefferson kind of started the game out. The first series against Pittsburgh, he had a run of, I think he had two about 10-yard runs in the first series, right? Yeah, and I mean, I think with Jamar, obviously, let's see, obviously it translated against Pittsburgh because they had their starters out there, but you look at the production he had last year in college, over 850 yards in only 6 games. I mean, the production speaks for itself. So, but that's a position to watch as well. I'm excited because that's going to be a tough one, I think, for the coaches and for the front office because when it comes down to next Tuesday, as far as who are we keeping, are we keeping 3 guys? Are we keeping 4 guys? You know who the top 2 guys are. Jamar Jefferson obviously drafted, so you have to think that he's got the fast track to getting on the roster. But a guy like Godwin and a guy like Craig Reynolds, who have also had awesome production so far in the first couple preseason games, are kind of making a name for themselves where, hey, if one of us isn't going to be in Detroit, hopefully we're going to be somewhere else because I think they've put enough productive film out there so far through 2 games.
Yeah, Craig Reynolds, another really interesting one to see if that undrafted free agent will make this 53-man roster, but he sure has made his case. Okay, we do have the trivia answer that I did not ruin this week. I'm very proud of that. Which current Lions defensive back had the most interceptions in college? We just went through all the defensive backs.
I'm trying to think who you said went to a long or who went to a smaller school. I don't know.
Yeah, not Power 5.
Tracy Walker?
Nope.
Do you just want me to start naming everybody?
Yep.
Dean Marlowe?
Yes.
Okay, it popped up on the
we
screen.
just gave that. Oh, okay. Thank you, producer Derek, for giving
12
that
interceptions.
Away.
Oh, good
12
for him.
At James Madison.
There's a guy. Look, hey, if that translates to the NFL, being able to take a ball away, you're gonna have a job.
It sure does. Yeah, that's great. Who comes up with these trivia questions? That was a great one. I love that for us.
You're right. I would have never guessed
that. Thank you for that.
Nice job, Derek. Derek's the best, by the way.
We love Derek. Yeah.
Derek, Joe, Neil.
Are we done?
Those guys are awesome.
Okay, before we go, everyone is looking ahead to week 1, San Francisco. I'm sorry, there is a game Friday, preseason, but listen, everyone's eyes are focused on Jimmy Garoppolo and those San Francisco 49ers,
maybe
September
Trey
12th
Lance.
at 1 p.m.
Maybe Trey Lance. Who
Trey
knows?
Lance. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things going on.
Yeah, there is.
What talk have you heard around the league about Jimmy G and Lance?
I think it's pretty tight, right? I don't think the coaches are going to let anybody know until week 1 who's going to start. Maybe you don't find out until the first snap of the game come week 1. But yeah, Jimmy G's obviously a guy that, listen, he was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He's been a guy that can show he can be productive in Kyle Shanahan's offense. You see him there making some plays with his leg. And sometimes it's interesting with a guy like that. I know he's coming off of had some injuries the past couple seasons, but anytime you bring in a rookie, especially a first-round pick, a high pick, third overall pick, that kind of gives you a boost to say, you know what, like this competition's on, man. And sometimes that brings the best out of you, and sometimes maybe Jimmy Garoppolo's the starter. Maybe we see, wow, this guy really took a step. Maybe it was because of the competition that Trey Lance brought in. But this is a tough opponent. Mm-hmm. It definitely is. I mean, San Francisco, I know they had a down year last year with a ton of injuries. They get back into the top 5. It's almost just like unfair to see a team with that much talent with a top 5 pick again. But that's a tough division that they play in, and they showed 2 years ago. I mean, what they did to the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. I know it didn't. They couldn't get past Kansas City, but what they did in that NFC Championship game was incredible. They're a special team. It's going to be a heck of a challenge week 1. I think you're going to find out. What this Lions team is made of pretty darn quick, because you look even past week 1, you got some tough opponents to start the season off. But like Coach said, I mean, they just got to continue to work hard, build their identity, and it's the NFL. You have teams every year that maybe they were really good last year that aren't as good. Maybe you have some teams that were really bad that can take a big step. So week 1 kind of tells you a lot about kind of where you're going.
I saw one tweet. I think it's reliable. The most bets have been placed on guess what team to not make the playoffs?
That made the playoffs last year?
I don't know if that's a factor, but
I mean, I would say Detroit might be up there
No.
with Cincinnati.
Dallas Cowboys.
To not make the playoffs.
To not make the playoffs.
Well, that's interesting.
Isn't that
They're
interesting?
getting Dak Prescott back. I mean, they were only one. I know, what was Washington, like 6-10 last year, and they won the division. So
anything can happen, folks.
Anything can happen there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've seen it every year. Team that wins 11, 12 games, and next year they win 3 or 4. Teams that win 3 or 4, next year they could win 10 or 11.
Yeah.
It's just the NFL is just so close in that gap, that margin gap of, the really good teams, the really bad teams usually comes down to maybe 3 or 4 games. And most games, that being said, are decided by one score or less anyway. So not to be cliche, but anything can really happen on any given Sunday.
Anything can happen. We are so excited. TJ and I will both be on the sidelines this Friday as the Lions host the Colts. He'll be sidelining for 97.1 The Ticket.
Yes.
If you don't like listening to the radio, you can come on over to the good side, the TV side, Fox 2 Detroit. You can watch me and my crew with Brandon Gaudin and Herman Moore on there. Yeah, you got Lomas Brown, Dan Miller. I would like to see us, 3-on-3 basketball, I think.
I'd take our team all day. I would take our team all day.
Are you more of a point guard?
Well, Lomas and I would just get down. Who's going to guard Lomas and I down in the paint? I don't see that happening, but
yeah,
the radio team, probably better looking, better athletes, and can definitely probably eat a lot more than you guys. So we've got everything going for us.
Yeah, you can take that last one for sure. Yeah. Don't worry, folks. We'll get that basketball game going. There's a hoop over in the indoor. It's right. We can make this happen. All right. Thank you to Thomas TJ Lang for joining me here on set. He loves when I call him that. I'm Dannie Rogers. It's been so fun having you guys tune in to these training camp live shows. This is the last one because training camp, it's almost over because we have almost real football, regular season. It's on its way. We will have so much more throughout this week on DetroitLions.com and all of the social media pages. So make sure you tune in there, and we will see you this week. We'll see you at Ford Field Friday.
Yes.
We'll see you there, fans.
Can we even afford this house?
I'm pretty sure we can.
Pretty sure. With Rocket Mortgage, you can be certain.
What's the difference?
I'm pretty sure they're just dolphins.
Certain is better.
Let's go with certain.
When you need to be certain about how much home you can afford, Rocket can.